Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Rory Ross. I'm on the Book of Boba Fett as a Tusken Raider, and I'm sitting here with Elias from the Man Cave Chronicles podcast.
Rory, welcome to the cave.
How's it going?
Exciting times for you, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, got my little Tatooine set up.
So, if the listeners, the viewers are tuning in, they're going to see you. They've seen you on Disney Plus's The Book of Boba Fett as a Tusken Raider.
Yes. I was very,
So,
very fortunate to play in several different scenes there.
before we dive into the show a little bit more, and of course the Star Wars universe, I was trying to do some research on you. I couldn't find that much on you, man. But I know you grew up in Iowa, right? But how did you get the acting bug, man? What made you get into it?
I mean, I feel like it's a crazy little story. I mean, growing up in Iowa, I grew up on an exotic farm, so we had emus, ostriches, all this kind of stuff, and then we had 2 African lion cubs at one point. We also had a pet store, but during that whole sort of upbringing, I mean, really, it kind of is also where the Star Wars story starts for me. When I was 6 years old, growing up on this farm, I happened to encounter a rare fungus that somehow got on the back of my head, and I basically had to go to the Iowa City Children's Hospital, and that's because of that. That's where my Star Wars story happened, because I just remember when we got there, it was sort of like a scene from a zombie movie where a hazmat crew came and they put me in a decontamination chamber and did all this little crazy stuff and went through different surgeries. Yeah, it was pretty nuts. And then, it was that first day my mom brought Star Wars: A New Hope, and seeing Luke's journey and understanding him also being from a farm and having that resonation there, but just more importantly of his journey, and then understanding that, there is things outside of the farm, but more importantly in that moment, it was just giving me that hope and inspiration that I needed, that I was going to be okay. Because I was there for about a month, and what was crazy is seeing some of the kids that were in that same pediatric ward with me. Some got better, and some that was sort of the end of the line for them. And so, at such a young age, feeling so vital and full of health, and then seeing that and understanding your own health is kind of vulnerable. It was a very scary kind of moment for me. And when I left, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but whatever it is, I want to bring hope and inspiration to people like Luke did for me. And so I was on the farm until 13, and then I left, kind of just like Luke, decided that Tatooine wasn't for me. I tried to do the farming stuff where I had the overalls and, going out there, feeding the cows, throwing the hay, all that kind of stuff. And even trying to be a cowboy with the cowboy boots and the red shirt and lasso. I was pretty good at the lasso, but I just was not great at riding horses. And I think that was my big downfall. But I left, and, from that, went to high school in Auburn, and then I went to college in Walla Walla University. And the first time I actually did an acting play, I was a chicken, out of all things, named Picard, and I laid an egg on stage. So I went, Picard, and then the egg dropped. And that was my first foray into actually acting. And then it's kind of been a journey from there, and going to Seattle and doing a lot of indie films and stuff out there. Seven Witches was one of the first things that I did. It's on Amazon. And then came out to LA in 2016 with $200 in my pocket, wearing my Seahawks jersey. So it's a little tough for me seeing the Patriots jersey right now. But it was fun. I came out and couch surfed, I think, for 4 months, just trying to figure out things, because didn't have as much of a plan as I should have when I came out to LA. And then here I am, still being able to work on Westworld, and got to do a different stand like that, and it's just been an amazing journey. And now to be in the universe that I love so much and have that full circle has been simply amazing.
Well, I got to know, because you just pretty much packed your bags and left. What was your parents' reaction? Did they try to they give you advice or anything? They tell you, "Oh, come on," you give it a try for a year or two, then come back. What was what did they say to you?
Well, so not to get too much into the nitty gritty, unfortunately, my father and I, we had sort of we had a little bit of a disconnect, I guess. Again, saying Uncle Owen and Luke,
Right.
there's a little bit of abrasion there. And so I left a few times during the summer, hoping things were going to be a little bit better. And then finally, I sort of decided, once I went to Seattle, that I was I'm not coming back. And my mom, she was devastated. She was going to school and trying to kind of keep the peace in the family. And she obviously really loved me and the rest of the kids, and was trying to figure out how to keep us all home. And I was I need a new beginning,
Right.
a new hope for me.
Hey.
And so for me, the only way she would let me go is if I went to the school and I had to pay, it was like 10 grand for freshman and sophomore year each, and then
Wow.
12 for junior and senior year. And so I did 2 different jobs. I also did different scholarships, and I always was doing outreach at the time. Because again, like going back to when I was 6 years old, coming back out of that, I was like, how do I live my life in a way that I'm trying to give to others? And so all throughout my life, I've always tried to find things to do, whether it was outreach in terms of, giving hot chocolate and food to the homeless in the Seattle community, or when I was in Walla Walla, Washington, I shaved my head into a rainbow mohawk to help raise, I think it was like $3,000 to build bathrooms in Honduras. So it was just,
Wow.
I've just tried to find ways of how can I be a better person and also give back. And so, it's been an amazing journey. And not to get too far ahead of myself, but we're also going to do a Tusken watch party. So it'll be myself and my buddy Warren Prue, who's the stand-in on Kenobi, which I can't talk too much about that, obviously. But we'll be doing some on-set stories and commentary, and then all the proceeds will go to the Iowa City Children's Hospital, which is where my Star Wars journey began.
That's awesome. So look at that, all that grinding away and pretty much fighting through, and now you're like cemented part of the Star Wars universe. Your name will always be attached to this.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and I want to make sure that I give credit to where credit's due. So what's kind of crazy, because of COVID, the production had to shut down, but originally this outfit, the Tusken Elder that you see, that I wear in several different scenes, was actually made for my buddy Greg Kufera. So he actually got to go with Robert Rodriguez. He went with John Favreau and Shauna, who's the head costume director, and they actually made this outfit for him and made sure that the scene, the robing scene, so they shot out of order. So they did the robe scene in episode 2 and the train scene the very first thing. And then when production shut down and they came back, he wasn't able to come through. And so that gave me the amazing opportunity to actually imbue the same character and to go ahead. And that's why you see me in episode 1 and parts of episode 2. So it was really amazing. Had that not happened, I'm really excited that he got that really awesome scene of, with Boba and the ceremony and having Boba become part of our tribe, which was really cool to see as a fan. And then also to see that in the after effects was really cool too.
So how did you like become part of this? Like, was it like an audition, or was it like you just, somebody knew you or something? And you just like, hey, we have this part for you. Like, tell us the story about that.
Yeah. So it's interesting because in one regard, so there's central casting, they do a lot of the background casting. And so it's not necessarily like you're chosen in the sense of like, you were the only one that we saw. So they kind of have a pool to choose from. However, I do want to say that I think there's a thing to do with manifestation. When you put your dreams out there, when you let people know what you're trying to do and how they can help. Because I remember it was in February of last year that I was on set with Tamara Mowry from Sister, and we're just having a conversation, and we were talking about dreams, and I told her about the Star Wars dream. This is something that's been really important to me. Been trying to figure out ways, and she's like, put it out there. And I was like, yeah. I kid you not. It was an hour later after this conversation, I get a text from Central Casting, and it said Buccaneer. And me being a Star Wars fan and being a sleuth, I was like, Buccaneer, that is Book of Boba Fett. Like, oh my gosh. And then it said Turkey Raider, and I was like,
Turkey
come
Raider.
on. Like, this is Tusken Raider. Like, because they even talked about like having wraps on your face or something like that, or not being claustrophobic. And I was like, that's exactly what it is. And sure enough, when I got on set and they fitted me to make sure that costume that Greg first imbued did actually fit me, it was just amazing as that process was happening. And every time each piece of clothing came on, you just felt like you were getting more and more immersed into the universe that we know and love.
It's funny how like would have had other actors on too, where they're like, where they get like the call or the script and they're like all the hidden names. Star Wars is pretty much like tight. They want to make sure you don't even have an idea what you're going in for.
Right. Unless you're like a big fan or a sleuth, because I know there was a lot of people, even though, I feel like the codename was out for a little bit and like, different people posted or something. But I remember even some of the actors on there, they thought that it was the Mandalorian. And I was kind of like, nah, this isn't the Mandalorian. Like, so it's funny, like, it seems like there's quite a few cast members that I don't want to say they're not Star Wars fans, but maybe they're not as kind of
Yeah.
entrenched as I am. But I was just like, I was geeking out. I was like, oh my gosh, I like, that's a panther. That is a panther right there. Oh my gosh. And then you go over here, you're like, this is Tatooine. Like, there's all this emotion happening, and the fulfilling of a childhood dream. Can't speak highly enough of that.
That's right. So how would you describe now playing this character throughout the first few episodes, and like what do you think was like the biggest challenge?
I mean, so it's you try to like find ways of separating yourself from the crowd, one, so
Mm,
that you can see who you are, because it's just, and when you're not a main cast member, it is like, people are
yeah.
obviously going to be like, how do you know that's you? And you're like, well, because of this, and so now when I'm on sets for other stuff, I've been making little notes and stuff. But just trying to be, I guess, as the process goes on, and just trying to figure out, like, you can walk and stuff like that. um but I think the biggest challenge, honestly, was also just the wrappings.
Mm,
No matter what time of the year you're filming, the California sun doesn't give up. It doesn't stop for anyone. And so I just remember, especially that first day, I was trying to be a tough guy, and even John Favreau called me that, because I remember I was like trying to hide in the shade, because they called for mask break and I didn't. And they said, we're going to do a camera move, a camera change. And obviously each set is different. So when you hear that, sometimes, the change up in terms of the lenses or the
mm,
angle, it can be pretty quickly. So I didn't exactly know how long it would usually take for them. It didn't take too long, but they wanted to make sure that everyone was getting a mask break. And so I was just trying to play it tough. And I remember trying to get in the shade, and then John Favreau came over, and he kind of was like, he kicks me in the boot, and I kind of look up. I was like, oh my gosh. And he's like, are you gonna go for a mask break, essentially? And I was like, oh no, I'm fine. He's like, are you sure? Like, you don't have to be a tough guy. And I was like, yeah, it's okay. But I was also freaking out that it was John Favreau, because I could definitely
right.
tell who it was, even with the mask. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. But it is a little tough to breathe in those masks. And again, when you have all those layers, it's difficult when that sun is beating on you. It's nice when you have a nice breeze and you can see, like, especially those tents, in a lot of the scenes, you see, the wind kind of going through. That's real wind. Like, it wasn't like, usually we didn't necessarily have to put on the actual big fan. Sometimes we did. But typically we were blessed with like some really nice wind gusts. But there were some times where it was so bad of the wind gusts that the tent stakes start coming up. And so you're like, okay, like, it's certain for the gust to kind of die down a little bit for some of those scenes. But when that wind came, it was nice, because it just kind of reinvigorated you from all the sweat that you've been drenching throughout the day. But if it was dry wind, that was the worst. Honestly, that was tough.
How long were you like how many hours like straight you think you were on set with the wraps around you before you actually took a break? What was like the longest, do you remember?
I think it was probably that first day, again, just being the tough guy. Probably, man, it might have been, it might have been 2 hours. Like, I might
Wow.
have been trying to be tough.
Yeah.
I almost want to say 3, but I feel like 2 hours is probably the most. It
Yeah.
was probably even maybe less than that. It's just, when you're in it,
Mm,
it feels like a really long time. And then again, like I said, I was just trying to be, uh, I was trying not to complain at all. Some of these people had been there already when
mm.
they had started shooting before. And so they were kind of like, okay, look, we know what's up. And so by the time towards the end of it, I remember being like, anytime there's a match, I'm going to take advantage of this.
Yeah.
Just trying to teach anybody new that was coming in to do the same.
How long did it take you to actually put the costume on?
I think it probably took about, I mean, it depended. So if you had like 2 people helping you, then, it's probably somewhere between 5 to 7 minutes. But I think
Okay.
if it was just one person, just because, the costume people, Shauna's people, they did such an amazing job. And there's so many people I would love
Mm.
to list, but I would be afraid of accidentally forgetting somebody else. So that's why I'm not saying all of them. Uh, but there's so many attention to details. There's little trinkets that are down there that are trying to um, specialize, or not, or basically make it so that you don't look like everybody, right?
Mm.
And so then you have the OBs and everything, and they're just trying to make sure that it looks perfect. You can't see any Velcro or anything that's like of this world, sort of thing. So it would take some time to really just make sure that they were organizing and everything looked like screen ready. And then obviously, as you're walking and then they cut, they would also have them come back on and, like, fix anything if something got awry.
Yeah. So working with the cast now, like how would you describe that?
Well, yeah. So with the cast, I got to work with Tim on a few different scenes, and he was amazing. You know, he really lives this character, and I want to say I saw him do the Maori sort of like, you know, the the grunting and stuff. I can't remember 100% sure on that, but I do remember one scene in particular where you see Boba taking off from the Tusken Raider camp, who the Rodian. Funny little story. That's Dawn. She works with Legacy, and so it's funny seeing her around. I saw her on Kenobi, and she was typically the one that would help with, you know, animatronics and stuff like that, or if there was like a big costume character. And so it was funny like seeing her and be like, wait a minute, you know, that's cool. So I messaged her on the side and was like, I didn't realize that was you. I'd seen her there, but because with the mask and everything, you just don't recognize who people are. But again, with Tim, when we were doing that chasing scene, he his stunt double actually was the one that was doing the fight originally with Joanna Bennett, who plays as the warrior. And then he ended up getting hurt. I don't think it was anything too serious, but just enough that it was like, you know, and then Tim came in and stepped in and was like, oh, I'll do this. This is fine. So anytime, like, you know, there was a chance of him being in it, he really took initiative of that. And typically with whenever you're doing a camera setup, you will have you're standing in there trying to make sure that they're getting the lighting and stuff like that. But Tim would actually do that quite often because he was just, you know, again, he wanted to live that character and be it, because he's like, this is who I've been for so long.
Right. Now, you also mentioned earlier in the interview about that scene where you guys, he becomes a member of the tribe, and you were part of that scene also. Like, describe that. It was like a powerful scene so far.
Well, yeah. So again, I want to make sure that the listeners know that was Greg Kufera who did the robing. So it was the Tusken that I had been, but again, that Tusken was only because Greg was the one that was originally fit for it. So I can't speak too much on that experience. I can speak onto it as a fan of just, you know, seeing that occur and happening.
Okay.
I remember when he came back. So I was in the scene right before that where he comes back with his branch, you know, and that's the sort of like when he was able to break through this emotional turmoil. And the way I see that scene is that he's sort of breaking through the bonds that he had in terms of trying to be his father or trying to avenge his father. Because from Geonosis, that's what we've seen his journey. If you've seen Clone Wars, you understand like that vengeance was real. And then even in Empire Strikes Back, it's like he's trying to be his dad. And this is finally the chance of him being able to break through that and become his own person and be with the tribe, be with the family that's probably the closest thing he's had to family so far. So that was really, really cool to be a part of, and to, you know, him bringing in the stick. And then I remember, obviously you didn't see a lizard when like they opened the jar, and you just see him kind of go like this, and you're like, is that COVID coming out of him? What is happening here? Like, what's going on? So they didn't explain that too much to us, but they were like, this is a sacred thing, you know, everyone be startled, sort of thing. So that was really cool. And again, to see the Tusken that I got to be a part of because of Greg, and see Greg doing that roving scene and seeing him become part of the tribe, that was awesome to see.
What's been like your favorite moment on the show?
As me, or just in general?
Both.
Oh, okay. So as me, I think just because it was really fun. Because I mean, like, you know, there's when he comes back with the beast head sort of at the end of episode 1, that was pretty cool, and being able to hold that. But I think that the funnest moment for me was actually when Tim brings in the speeders, and so he's like, you know, I brought these for us, and he's trying to explain to the chief, and then you look over and you see all the Tuskens being like, oh, these are parts of scavenge, so we're like taking it off and like throwing it away and things. He's like, oh, stop, no, for us, you know. And I think that was just really fun because we did so many different takes, and I think that to a certain degree maybe Tim was getting a little bit aggravated, like the slightest, not saying like he was angry or anything, but because we would do scenes or takes of that where we literally just continued until the chief was kind of like gave us like a sign or something, and he was just like, come on, like, are we gonna keep rolling, or we're like, what's happening here? But that was really fun. And then as a fan, I mean, I think again, like where you see that scene of him at the tree, you're seeing the sort of that hybrid of like it's Camino, or what looks like Camino to us because we've seen the tumultuous seas, but then also knowing that, you know, Tatooine actually used to be a covered in water or a sea planet, was also really interesting in understanding that dynamic. But with Boba, in terms of Boba, and seeing him struggle doing that cross cut between the Sarlacc pit and then also, with him inside the tree and trying to break free, seeing him finally get that release, I think was actually a really cool moment. And what I think Book of Boba Fett really is sort of about, I mean, yeah, it's got the crime families and everything else, but I think it's more about how, his journey and where he's coming from and where he's going. I think that's been a huge thing.
We mentioned earlier about Jon Favreau. How amazing has it? Like, this guy they pretty much took the Mandalorian out of this, and it's like whole different world compared to like other Star Wars projects we've seen in the past.
Yeah. Well, John and Dave Filoni. Dave Filoni, for those that may not be familiar, Dave Filoni, he did the animated Clone Wars. And so he's the one that brought in Ahsoka. And then we saw Ahsoka and her journey in Rebels. And then now he got to bring her into live action. I can only imagine how cool that was for him. And seeing some of these other characters that he brought, like Rex and stuff like that, and through the different series, with Clone Wars and Rebels. It's just been really cool in terms of seeing that. So, but working with John and Dave, I mean, it's just amazing. I look up to them of being able to see these amazing Star Wars stories, and then to see freaking Luke come back in Mandalorian season 2 was like, oh man, so like my ultimate dream would be to be a Jedi, hence the whole outfit, the manifestation aspect. I think it's actual plausible thing. And so, like, if I got the chance to be Luke Skywalker's student at his Jedi Academy, should they show that would be amazing. And so that would be the ultimate dream for me.
That's awesome. So you had a role in this. There's rumors that you're going to be in Kenobi, but from what I've been digging around online, like, what else do you want to do in the Star Wars universe? You mentioned the Jedi also. It's like, how many parts do you want to have in this universe? As many as you can.
But for me, so I have been able to say I was a stormtrooper in Kenobi. I don't know if I want to say that at this particular point, but it's been really amazing. And I've told them since Boba Fett, like, hey, look, I want to be, you can use me as much as you want, as long as my face isn't seen, until I get an opportunity to play as a Jedi. And so that's what I'll say. It's like, I don't want my face seen until I have I have that opportunity to do so with that amazing dream. So that's what it is.
How about voiceover work? Would you do that for Star Wars stuff?
Oh, heck yeah. I would definitely do voiceover. If they were like, yo, we want you to play that, like, yeah, let's go. That would be amazing. Like, to be in the echelon with Ashley Eckstein, who did Ahsoka, and then you've got D. Bradley Baker, who did all the trooper voices. Amazing guy. That would be Matt Lanter as Anakin. That'd be so cool.
Now, what's next for you now? Any other projects you could tell us about that you're working on?
Yeah, I could say so. I finished on a project called Unwavering, which is really cool. It was kind of about the race studies that happened in the I'm trying to remember the time period, but it's like the 60s, I want to say 60s or 70s. But we just finished on that at the University of Redlands, and so that's in post right now. Hopefully that'll be coming out sometime this year, and that was really cool to be a part of as an associate producer. And then also I got to do a minor role as a professor. But with that, it's honestly what I've been doing is just working on certain little things here and there, and trying to train and be as prepared as possible should that opportunity come about, if I was able to audition or become a Jedi. So that's sort of my focus at the moment, and just trying to find ways of giving back to the community. And again, that's why I was talking about the Tusken Watch Party. That's sort of really my big focus right now, and trying to get that going. That's going to happen after the series is aired, so there's no potential spoilers, and we can talk more about in depth about certain things. That's what we're trying to do, or what I'm trying to do right now.
That's awesome. Rory, how can the listeners and the viewers find you on social media so they keep up with you?
Yeah, you can find me at the Rory Ross on Instagram and Twitter, as well as borntobeajedi.com. That's where you can see all the updates about the training and different things there, different convention appearances and stuff like that. And follow along the journey, and may the force be with you.
Rory, this was great. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, pleasure, man.